Okay, Jillian, let's get started.
All right. Okay, so welcome everybody. Welcome to today's Doors Open Baltimore virtual presentation by the Baltimore Architecture Foundation. My name is Jillian Storms and I will be your host. Thanks to everybody who donated to be with us. And thank you, oh, hold on. I'm forgetting to advance the slides. Sorry about that. Okay, yeah, thank you for supporting us. And thank you to our sponsors who, because of their support, we've been able to offer over 30 free Doors Open programs this year. Each week, we explore a different theme. This week's theme is Design Week, culminating in the AIA Baltimore and BAF's Excellence in Design Awards celebration this Friday. See this and all doors opening offerings at www.doorsopenbaltimore.org, the links which will be posted in the chat box momentarily. Let's see over here. There's our people who helped out. Sorry about that, our sponsors. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. There we go. Sorry, I was there. Yes. Okay, don't forget. There's also still time to enter our Instagram at-home photo contest. Upload architectural photographs into Instagram using hashtag DoorsOpenBaltimore before the contest ends on October 31st. Or just vote for your favorite. Visit the Doors Open website for details. And again, that's posted in the chat. Too fast. And now today's presentation. Charlie Brickbauer was educated at Yale University and awarded the Rome Prize in Architecture by the American Academy in Rome. Over the course of he's a fellow. Over the course of his distinguished career, Charlie has brought a sophisticated, modern style to the Baltimore region. First for over 30 years as the firm of Peterson Brickbauer, and since 1995 in association with Ziger Snead Architects. Their joint effort on the Maryland Institute Brown Center won them the AIA Baltimore's Grand Design Award in 2004. Charlie will be discussing the design of the USFNG building, also now known as the Marbury Building in Mount Washington, which won the AIA Design Award in 1992. Please add questions you have for Charlie in the chat box, and we will get to as many as we can at the end of his presentation. With that, I'd like to introduce Paul Tabersi, you can correct me if I get this wrong, from DLA Piper, who are proud tenants of the building, and he will say a few words first.
Thank you, Jillian. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I'm Paul Tabersi. I'm a partner at DLA Piper, formerly Piper and Marbury. I'm a Charlie Brickbauer fan of long standing. Our firm has been the principal tenant of the building since 2000, and I was managing partner for many of those years. We love the building. In fact, looking on the screen, seeing it, we miss it. We haven't been there for a while because of COVID. And I should say, initially, we were going to do this live and in person, and we promised to do it next year. We'll all have you come in and we'll give you a tour. It's a gorgeous building. And I also know Charlie's great work at MICA at the Brown Center. I'm on the board there. My daughter goes there. And there are other great Brickbauer buildings around town, so please check them out. But for my money, the Marbury Building is the best and most beautiful building in Baltimore. And interesting point, Jillian, it was originally called the Founders Building. And when I was managing partner in 2005, we convinced Hopkins, and they agreed readily to rename it after William L. Marbury, who was a great lawyer at Piper and Marbury. It's now the Marbury Building. Very proud of that. It's the most gorgeous building in Baltimore. And these days, with the leaves dying, when you head up 83, look sharp to the left, and there it is. Stunning, beautiful. Some people even say, gee, what is that great building up there? It's Charlie's great building, which is beautiful. By the way, another little point that's interesting. In 2004, when I was managing partner, a film crew came to us and asked that the building be used to play the CIA headquarters. And we agreed. And so for 2 weeks, George Clooney and the film of Syriana was filmed there. And our great building, Charlie's building, played the CIA headquarters in that building. It was a lot of fun, and Clooney was cool, but the building was the star playing the CIA headquarters. So with that, we missed the building, and we do promise to do this next year in person. We'll host you all there. But thank you, Charlie, for your brilliant work that we usually enjoy every day.
Thank you, Paul. I always appreciate your enthusiasm for my work, and this is a great sort of opportunity. Here we start. This presentation originally was going to be a tour of the building and less formal, and so people could ask questions. And I do hope you'll ask questions. I don't know whether you can interrupt me or not, but I don't mind if you do. But this sort of to start with, this sort of very funny image of Philip Johnson with the PPG building in Pittsburgh on his head got me thinking about glass and about the technology of glass and what the possibilities were. And this sort of ludicrous building, I think it is kind of an English Gothic with a K copy of part of it's sort of a caricature of the Houses of Parliament. And Victorian Gothic Victorian Gothic was already in its second phase when the Houses of Parliament were built. But I mean, I don't know where you put Philip Johnson in all of this. But okay, that's so I'm still thinking about
Sorry.
Yeah, okay, no, that's fine, that's fine.
Why don't you do this, Charlie, when you're ready to advance a slide, you just say advance or something.
Okay, well, anyway, this building I always found to be, Johnson's building, to be kind of ridiculous. And it also sort of is typical of sort of Johnson's kind of perverse aesthetic. So move on to the next one. next one. I'm still talking about glass as an interest, as an architectural element. And back in 1976, I believe, I did the Blue Cross building here, and the silver glass technology, that it was a silver reflective glass technology, had just been developed. This is one of the first buildings that it was used, and I used the glass technology as a driving aesthetic, and made it possible to make this almost perfect cube. And so it's all about, for me, this building is about neoclassicism, which is, the perfect cube. And but the technology, but on the other side, it's all about the glass technology. So you can move on to the next slide now. So we're back to this. In the meantime, ever since Johnson on that building, what he did was he made, which was really ridiculous, he made glass look like stone, or he imitated stone and glass, which is ridiculous. And in the meantime, in the many years of advance since then, glass technology has made huge advances. And now we can have transparent glass that's just as efficient as the mirrored glass was back then. And also there's been a new curtain wall technology, which is also fabulous, I think. And this was one of the first buildings using it, was the silicone glazing technique, which means that there's no metal on the outside of the building. It's all glass with just a silicone joint in between the panes of glass that are literally glued to the building. And the challenge for me was to use the latest technology, and the challenge was to do a transparent glass building with glass as architecture rather than architecture as copying glass. I mean, copied in glass. If that's clear at all, it's a total reversal of what Philip Johnson was doing there. Next slide, Con. All right, just to give you an overview of the building, the site, the program for the building was concentrated a lot on the site. The site was very beautiful and wooded, and the owner wanted to maintain as much of that as possible. And at the same time, because this was a building that was basically a operations center, and there were no or very few private offices, he wanted the floor plate to be as shallow as possible, so that the people working in the building were close to the exterior and could enjoy the outside. And so in order to accomplish this, I did this 60-foot square bay. And by staggering it, I created a lot of exterior wall, and at the same time, the depth of the office plate was reduced, which made it possible for everybody to look out. The program was also for 2 buildings, and they were supposed to be able to operate separately, or in the end as a single building. So I divided the 2 buildings along this ravine that was on the site, and put a atrium in the middle, connecting the 2 with bridges. And the modular layout of the building is both horizontal and vertically it's a 5-foot module, which means that all the verticals are in 5-foot increments, and the layout of the building is in 5-foot increments. And the 60 by 60 structural bays that you see here divide very nicely by 5. Let me see if there's anything I missed here on this. Okay, let's do another slide here. Go back quickly. Go back to the previous slide. Yeah, and the thing I did here was the space system got very, very boring. And I realized I had to do something about it. And I took a clue from Louis Kahn, and I offset the 2 buildings. So they're not aligned. They're a half a bay off. So that created a very dynamic relationship, and sort of brought the whole composition to life. When you're dealing with modules, they can be very boring and stultifying. But move on. Then the next slide sort of shows you how Louis Kahn dealt with these same things. And this is a house that Louis Kahn did early in his career. But go on to the next slide.
My cat. Sorry.
So this is yeah. Whoops, you got it. No, back.
Oh, I went too far. I am so sorry, Charlie. I think
Yeah,
this is the next one.
This is fun, but I mean, this is an English country house, and it sets on a green lawn, and it's surrounded by green. It's sort of the same idea, and the landscape is done by Capability Brown, who had really influenced everything that I did around the building. So move on to the next one. It's just an interesting. So this is the typical interior. So you can see how they managed to keep everybody connected to the outside. And the other thing that was, which I really had a hard time with that we had an interiors outfit from New York who came in, and they were interested in just doing big floor plates that it has nothing to do with the building they're in. It's just sort of square footage. And I had a hard time making them realize that the inside was the same as the outside. It was all part of the same building. And it took a long time before I really got them to do this palette, which is very sympathetic with the building. It was amazing how hard it was to get them to see this simple logic. But in the end, I won. It was really very beautiful. I was very satisfied with it. I can go to the next slide now. So this building is about an awful lot of things. And that's as a result of the fact that sort of later in my career, and I had a lot of influences to look back on and and I also don't, I worked for a period of time for Philip Johnson, and he used to say, there is nothing that hasn't been done before. And he always seemed to refer everything to some historic reference. And that's stuck with me for my entire career, because I find that yes, indeed, everything has been done before in one way or another. And so the next few slides I'm gonna kind of talk about that aspect of this building, the various influences that brought it to fruition. Let me have the next slide. This is the Federal Reserve Building in Washington by Paul Cray. Now go back to the previous sketch. So then go forward again. You can see Paul Cray was a classicist. He was a Philadelphia architect, but he did lots and lots of classical type buildings. And what he did, which I admire so much, is that he took the classical mode and made it his own. This is a totally personal interpretation. Let me have the next slide. Well, this is, I meant to have a different slide here, but anyway, it's a very personal interpretation of a classical front. And this is the Salisbury Cathedral, and it sits on the grass almost as if it's being pushed up out of the ground. And it's the same sort of effect that I wanted with the FNG building. And let me have the next slide. And I can't remember what's next here.
Yeah, I can't either. Sorry, Charlie. I'm going.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
There we go. My arrow buttons aren't working right.
Now this is the National Gallery, I
think you were going to talk about.
By John Russell Pope, and this is I just throw this up as how Pope was also a classicist, and he was a real classicist, as you can see. He made it. Cray made the style his own, and Russell Pope just was an absolutely slavish to the classical style. So that's just interesting as a sideline about the difference between how Cray looked at it and Russell Pope, who is probably the best classical architect that there's ever been in America. So move on to the next slide.
Oh, sorry, I hopped.
Oh, whoops, you went past. This is the back side of the building, and I just threw this in here to show you how classical it really is in its formality. So the next slide.
Charlie, the thing that I find amazing is that it doesn't appear like most buildings that has a plenum, and you have thickness for where you have a parapet and flashing, and this one is just all about transparency. It's just so remarkably different than anything that exists. So I mean, kudos to whatever it took to create that effect, because it doesn't follow all the norms at all.
No, it's totally unique. There's no doubt about that. But again, the purpose, I mean, I've had so many purposes in this building, but the main one was to use transparent glass and somehow make it into architectural forms. And so it balances itself very, very delicately between, you can see through the glass into the building, but at the same time, there's this surface which defines the architecture. And that was because there are actually sort of 5 different kinds of green glass in this building, and it depends on where they are, and in order to accomplish these various effects that I wanted to accomplish here. And for instance, the spandrel has a mirror in back of it, which the idea was to reflect the outside, and at the same time, the mirror is also the same kind of green glass. So the light, what you see here is the light going through the same piece of glass 4 times actually. So, and that's how the color is developed. So.
I did have one question, since if I'm allowed to interrupt you, just
yep, that's
since
fine.
we have this up here. I know that the ease of maintenance was given special design consideration with the Mercantile building that you did downtown, with the addition of the vertical stainless steel tracks for the window washers scaffolding, and it added an interesting visual element to the facade. I didn't know if maintenance of the glass for this building came into play at all in the design, just dealing with that aspect. Yeah,
well, I mean, it is. I mean, it's only 4 stories high, or 4 or 5 stories high at the most, and so it's very easy to clean. So we did not have to have a unit. It can be cleaned with what do you want to call those jacks from the outside. But one of my concerns was the recessed and mirrored recess, and I'm having a senior moment. I was mostly concerned that would be able to be maintained, and it's 5 feet, and it's all of these spaces.
Are you talking about this little recessed area here?
No, I'm talking about the spandrel.
Oh, okay, and yes.
The spandrel is completely accessible so that it can be cleaned. The mirror and the inside of the glass can be cleaned. There's a removable panel in every bay, every 5-foot bay, that you just drop down and you can crawl up in there. It's 5 foot, so there's plenty of room to work. And I don't know if it's ever been.
Is that kind of like what we're looking at? It's like that spandrel is kind of like a little box that you're actually seeing through, but yeah. Okay, I see.
The bright thing is the mirror, and it's recessed about, I think, about 2 feet or no, about 3 feet back, and so.
And then that's sort of the shadowing that occurs because of the depth. So that makes it such a fascinating optical illusion, I think, with those elements that you added. I had no idea.
Well, that's all part of it. It's all part of tricking the eye, which is one of the things that I really think is important about architecture, is when you can do that. So anyway, as I said, the building earlier is, and I'm going to talk about that. You move to the next. Yeah, that's fine. Next slide. Okay.
Is that the right one?
Okay. Now this is a whole new thing, and I mean, as far as, it's not a new thing to me. It's something I've dealt with my entire career, and I have this theory in design that if you use a proportioning system, and you use it not only horizontally but vertically, and you use it throughout the building, it gives the building what I call a a subliminal order. In other words, I've taken note of this many times on many buildings, many ancient buildings, that there's something about them that this feels right. And when you delve into it, invariably there's a proportional system that carries everything. And so this is probably the most popular proportional system that was ever been used. And it's based on the Greek harmonic system. And I won't go into that, it's very complicated. But anyway, this tells you how the various proportions relate to the music. So move on to the next solution, the next. Yeah. So here I am back again. And this is just an example of over here of how the proportioning system is applied to the building. And it's too bad that the thing is there on the side, because it gives the actual dimensions in inches. But here you can see it's all 1, 2, 3, 4. The plan is 3 by 4. This is just I'm just talking about the atrium, and the suspended glass entrances is 2 by 3 and 3 by 4. Typical pane is 1 by 2. That's 5 by 10, and the typical spandrel glass here is 5 by 5. The ceiling is again done on 5-foot module, and the section through it is 1 by 2. It's twice as high. It's the vertical is 1 and the horizontal, the square is 2. And it just, for me, and I don't know whether anybody really agrees with me or not, but I always find when I've done this building, when you walk around or you're inside of the building, there's a sense of continuity about it. And I call it, again, the subliminal order. And when you have a chance to go to the building, which I hope we'll do next year when we can, maybe you'll sense that. I think it's a very important element, not only in this building, but all the buildings I've ever done. The same system applies to all of my buildings, and it has from day one. So you can move on now to the next. So this is the atrium, and the two buildings are connected by these bridges. And there's this stair. The concept of the stair was initially to follow the ravine that goes through the building, and the stair again is one of those things that I feel very strongly about how they're done. And I learned a lot from John Russell Pope at the National Gallery of Art. He, in all of his buildings, when there's a grand stair, it is always broken, and is normally broken very much at the beginning of the when you go up, and it's usually below the eye level. So it draws you up the stair. The stair is not this big mountainside that like you see at the Metropolitan Museum in New York, and it sort of invites you up. And here's the Baltimore Museum of Art. Here also John Russell Pope. Here you can see how he's done it again here, and so this. So you can see. And the other thing about the stair is there's something about John Russell Pope really understood stairways, and the proportion of this stairway is the same as at the National Gallery. In other words, the riser to the tread is exactly the same one, because at the National Gallery it feels perfect. Every time I'm there, I say, "Wow, this is really wonderful." And so why not copy it? Why reinvent the wheel? So you can move on to the next story. So this again is it just shows the complexity of the idea, and it also shows how Baroque it is. And it's Baroque in the sense that it's very rich, and it's very complicated and very geometrically perfect. And this is one of my favorite photographs of the building because it shows how transparent the outside corners are and how complicated the geometry is and how basically Baroque it is. I'm just very, very pleased with this particular photograph. You can show the next
Charlie,
photograph.
Before we jump, the thing that I find fascinating about this photograph, when I first looked at it, it looked like there was a series of trees in front of the building that were transparent, but it's actually the trees reflected on the building that are behind us.
Yeah.
That's what is
That's
just
one
so
of the
amazing.
things. That's one of the things about this. When you go back to the original view of the front of the building, it's all the trees are all in the reflections of the whole in the front view that we've looked at. But I mean, and that's because the glass basically is reflective, and when you put this glass has is not only a green glass, but it also has a coating on it, and the coating makes it just faintly more reflective, and it picks up all of the surrounding green when you walk around the building.
And it also, I mean, the thing that's amazing is it then allows your building not to be obscured by the trees. You still see trees, but it's not obscuring the actual building. That's a sort of fascinating, little Benny from this. It's wonderful.
So the next slide really is just talking about Baroque, how complicated Baroque things are. This is one of the more famous Baroque buildings in Rome. I just throw that in. You can go to the next.
I think that's your ending slide. Oh, well, almost.
Here we are. Yeah. So I guess that's it. And I hope I was clear. I'm not very good at talking about my buildings, I don't think.
Charlie, do you mind if I say a couple more comments that have come to mind?
Yes, please.
While people are queuing up their questions. But one thing which is fascinating is if you come to the building, we have the model that Charlie did originally. We found it with Hopkins's help, and it's the model that Charlie did of the building to convince USF&G to do the project, right, Charlie? So it's right there as you walk in the building, the actual model with lights and everything. Very cool. Very cool, because you had to sell them. You were selling, my word, you were convincing an insurance company to do a very unusual and unique building.
Well, it was really a difficult job because we hired, there are a lot of people who do building renderings for promotional purposes out there. And I asked 2 or 3 of them to try and interpret this building. And it was absolutely impossible. They came up with the most bizarre renderings of it. And so finally I said to the man who was acting as the client, I said, let's make a model of just one bay so we can see how this looks. And so we made this, and it was quite large. It was probably about 12 inches by 12 inches. And the model maker was a very famous model maker in New York who works for the Museum of Modern Art. And when my client saw this, he said, "Oh my God, it's beautiful." and he said to the model maker, "Make a model of the whole damn building so I can use it as use it to sell it to the board." And that was how it happened. And so he made this huge model. And so that's how we finally sold it. Because
when we gather next year, we're going to meet right at the model. And the last thing I'll say, and I see questions are queuing up. I'm spending a lot of time at MICA, and you see the same glass effect at the Brown Center, and some people are asking you about that. But anyway, breathtaking, and thank you, Charlie. Just wanted to comment about the model, which is terrific.
Yeah, the building would never have happened without that model. That's really because we were just up against the wall trying to communicate what it actually looked like. I knew what it was going to look like, but how do I tell people how it's going to look like?
Yep, I'm proud that we have it there with a little name tag and everything.
Yeah, well, I remember when I first got together with you. I think I asked you, does anybody know about this mysterious model? Whatever happened to it? And you somehow found it.
with the help of Hopkins and a guy named Brian Dembeck, it was in a warehouse somewhere, but there it is. You'll all see it next year.
Nathan, do we have any questions that have been posted to the chat?
Yeah, they're coming through. So, Charlie, going back to the Brown Center, can you reflect on your approach of the use of glass in the Brown Center as a comparison or contrast to the design approach for this building?
Well, that's an interesting question. The Brown Center was completely constricted by its site. It was the tightest site, and it was a parallelogram, and I just getting the building onto that site was a big trick. And what developed in the design process was I suddenly was fascinated by the geometry of the site. It was a parallelogram, and the whole concept grew out of this angle, which was 62 degrees, and it became this sculptural form which was built on the 62-degree angle, and it curves throughout the building, along with the there's also a five foot module there, 5 vertical module, so it has the same proportional system as the F&G building, and it's basically a piece of sculpture and it is really kind of what's happening with the building industry. It has for the last few years with all these enormous glass buildings that are being built, and I feel they sort of stopped being architecture as much as they are sculpture, and the MICA building is essentially a piece of sculpture, very much the same way the Blue Cross building is a piece of sculpture. But and of course, again, the glass was the trick, which is the glass is both transparent and translucent and reflective, and as the light changes during the day, it's a different building every time you look at it.
Another question about the site. So I-83 is pretty close to the building, and yet when we're looking at photos of the building and you go to that site, you feel like you're in this beautiful, like, wooded area. What considerations were made to mitigate the sight and sounds of I-83?
I didn't quite get what the last part.
Yeah, what sort of design considerations were made to mitigate the sound and sight of the highway?
There were none whatsoever, because there wasn't a problem. It's far enough away from the road, and it's heavily wooded, and it's just as quiet there as ever. You can barely hear the sound of the highway.
Yeah, I can attest to that. You can't hear a thing. And in the summer and the spring, you can't even see it. Now, when you go out there in November, December, January, you see the cars coming and going and the backup, but there's no sound problem. You're right, Charlie. No sound at all.
Next question I have for you, Charlie, is has the interior been altered as use has changed of the building?
Oh, well, it's very much different now, as Paul will attest to. It's no longer an operations center for an insurance company, but it's a lawyer's space or building, and so there's an awful lot of private offices around the outside of the building, and I've never seen, I've never completely toured it. I've just seen parts of it, but it seems to work fine. You think so, Paul?
Well, there was a little culture shock because you built the building, as you said earlier, so that folks could see out, but lawyers are used to having enclosed private offices. So when we first went out there in 2000, many people had glass walls and sort of a fishbowl effect. Some people still do, but most of us wanted privacy. So that was a sort of lawyer thing. So now there are some first we had actually glazed glass, and now it's kind of enclosed, but some people like the effect of being able to look in and out. There's a great conference room complex on the 3rd floor. We'll show you all with gorgeous views. So we'll show you that next year. Anyway.
You know, Charlie, we did have someone in the chat box commenting that they're having a hard time finding anything about the building online. For such a building that is so wonderful and prestigious, it does remain rather hidden when it comes to, because it's so new. It's not like it's a historical reference and you find it on Wikipedia here and there, and yet it is so significant. But they're struggling to find like when it was built and some basic information, because you just don't find it as the firm might be known, but not the actual building. So
well, you can do a Wikipedia on it if you want. It's up to you.
Yeah, we might need to, obviously. I think well, I guess what we're saying is it needs more exposure. I think they were trying to find out when the date that it was actually constructed and opened.
What'd you say it needs more?
The date it opened. Was it 1994, or what was the date it opened?
I can't remember. It's 1996 or 9. I can't remember when it was. But I have it. I just don't have it at the tip of my tongue. But you say it needs more exposure. Well, the problem with it is it's totally hidden away, and that's charm, and it's wonderful about how it's hidden away there. And the only time anybody ever gets a glimpse out of it is in the winter when the leaves are down, and you can see it on I-83 a little bit if you look to the left quickly when you're going by. You know,
well, that's what I challenged everyone and teased them when you're going up 83. I think it may have opened in 90. And one historical fact Charlie will remember, but it's sort of a political thing. There was an effort early on by USF&G to build an off-ramp from 83 onto this complex.
Yeah.
And the lower building used to be St. Agnes, the school for young ladies, Mount St. Agnes.
Yeah.
There was a lot of local opposition, but originally there could have theoretically been an off-ramp from 83 going right in, and it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Probably for good, it didn't happen.
Well, yes, you're right. I agree 100% on that. I never liked the idea. I really love the sort of hidden away aspect of it.
Charlie, I know according to the past records that were on your website under awards, it did say in 1992, it won the design award for AIA Baltimore. Maybe that was for, but that 1992 is what was cited. So at least your designs go back as early as that.
Yeah.
Nathan, do we have other questions?
Yeah, I was just thinking that it sounds like a job for the Baltimore Architecture Foundation to write up something about this building.
Yeah, I mean, because it's a group that always does good recording these things is Baltimore Heritage, but this may be too advanced for them because it's not historic yet. But in some ways, it has enough significance to be considered that, despite its early age.
So another question for you, Charlie, is the top story of the building reserved for mechanical, and are the ground floors below grade?
What was that again? The top, there's no, well, what was the bottom floor, did they say?
Yeah, are the ground floors below grade, and is the top story reserved for mechanical?
Okay, it's an interesting question. The building is served by a central system for the whole Mount Agnes campus. So we did not really have to have, we just needed local mechanical spaces, and many of those are just on the floors. So there was no major mechanical space needed, which was very lucky and very good because, and the lower floors, underneath the building, there's must be a 200-car garage, which is pretty much hidden away under the grass, if that answers your question. Yeah.
Right. And I have one more question for you here, which is, Did you also design the parking garage?
What was that again?
Did you also design the parking
Of
garage?
course, I designed everything in the building. Yeah, the parking garage, it was very, it's because of the grades of the site, the parking garage does not have to have any ramps in it because you can, there's the road that goes in front of the parking garage, which is way out in front of the building and low down. You don't even know it's there, but the roads feed automatically into the various 3 levels and without any ramps. And it really worked very beautifully. It was just sort of the way the site was laid out.
And I have a final question here. It's a good one. What is your favorite detail in the building?
Oh, that's interesting. I can't do that. I really can't answer that because there's no way to break any detail out as being different from the rest of the building. It's all of a piece, and that's why when I talk about with the subliminal order of the building, it's all of a piece. Everything is related in the building. Everything is related to the system and to the whole concept. And I don't think I could break any particular thing out because then it would like taking something away. Building which there isn't. Was that?
I think that's a very good answer. Well, thank you so much, Charlie, for joining us for this very presentation. I really enjoyed that. And thank you everyone for tuning in for this presentation as far as Doors Open Baltimore. As Jillian was saying in the beginning, this is part of our design week. And on Friday, we have our Excellence in Design Awards celebration, where we'll be celebrating the best of Baltimore design. So I hope you can join us for that and all of the other Doors Open Baltimore programs happening this month. And you can find more information at www.doorsopenbaltimore.org. Thank you.
I actually
Okay.
put the in the chat. I put the link to the Eventbrite for the celebration for this Friday, or it's actually yes, it's Friday.
I just wanted to say that I really look forward to actually having a in-person tour, as Paul was talking about. It's much better to see it rather than look at photographs, and it's easier to talk about then too. I'm not really great about talking about my own work, but I do the best I can. So thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you for putting this together.
We all look forward to the in-person tour, I'm sure. Very much so. Thanks, guys.
Okay.
Charlie, thank you so much. Paul, thank you. Jillian, Nathan, Charlie Duff's not here, but he also was a part of this. So thank you, Charlie, and everybody else that played a role in this, and also to the Historic Resources Committee of AIA. Thanks.
Good night, everyone.
Okay, bye-bye.